C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you mentioned earlier, Tom Mazaway, injured at practice, but we found there is no structural damage. A lot of people were thinking the season was over with the injury to C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
I'm sure he thought it too, right?
When you get the punch in the ground, you know, that's a sign of an individual that's upset. You feel like it's going to be longer than you want to, and then you don't want to be injured at all. I want to put this up. Taylor Decker talked about the injury, and let's see what he had to say. We had that. Taylor Decker.
I don't know what happened, so I don't want to speculate on what happened. And then that's also, unfortunately, part of our game. But especially the defensive backs and the guys who got to know him really well, like it's going to suck to see a friend go down. Hopefully it's nothing major. Hopefully he's okay. It's the nature of our game, which sucks. But like the NFL it's bigger than any one player, and we care about the players, but like we have to go out there, we have to keep practicing, like, you know, we have to move the drill down, we got to keep going, because it's urgency right now. So hopefully he's going to be okay. I think he brings a lot of confidence to that DB room. I mean, that guy he's a talker, and that's what DBs do. And he's going to make those guys around him better. He's a confident player. Like, we've even seen that walkthrough where it's like, well, that's not a walkthrough tempo, but it is what it is. So I hope he's okay, because I think he can bring a lot of value. I know everybody knows that he can bring a lot of value to our team. But I mean, it's just the nature of the game.
And this video, courtesy of Danny Rogers and Lions. Appreciate that. And you hear that from one of the Lions captains, not a captain, but one of their big leaders, Taylor Decker. He's been here now for the better part of 5 years. He's a leader on that team. He's talking about the importance of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They brought him here to make a difference in that secondary like he did last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. I position this question to you, T. Foss. When C.J. Gardner-Johnson went down earlier, I heard that. I said, okay, damn, he's going down. My first thought was, how good is he really? Like, is he really the guy? Like, I'm thinking, like, is he replaceable by Brian Branch, who we just drafted in the second round last year? Now, we have depth at the safety position. C.J. Gardner's the best. But how good is he? I look at the team last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. Their defensive line was loaded, from Robert Quinn to Hassan Reddick to Ndamukong Suh to Brandon Graham. The list goes on. How good is C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and how much is he going to help the city of Detroit this year?
I guess we never really know, because of that defense was so good in Philadelphia. Right. But from talking to people in Philadelphia, they say he's pretty damn good, and that he was one of the reasons they did go to the Super Bowl. And he was a guy that was really pissed off they didn't win it. Like here in Detroit, if the Lions make the Super Bowl, we're like, okay, this is cool. Whatever happens, happens. He's like mad.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go to the Super Bowl here. He wants to win it. But the other thing that I took out of this injury, non-injury, is we are trying to figure out, are the Lions all of that? Are they going to have a good season? Today, it tells me the Lions are blessed. This was a guy who thought his season was done. Lion fans thought his season was done. And now they're saying, nah, he's fine. This organization can do no wrong. And even in a situation like this, the Lions have dodged another bullet. And I just think this is another sign that we're going to see a stellar season at Ford Field.
Now, I can't believe I'm hearing those words out of Terry's mouth. In all the years I've known him, and it's a long time, I've never heard those words.
Captain Cynic over there,
I've never heard those words out of his mouth. Can you say that one more time? The Lions.
I'll say this. First time in my life.
Ooh.
I will say this.
Are you going to break out your Lions shirt? The one shirt you have?
I'm not wearing a Lions shirt.
Oh, you're not
going that far.
You're not going that far.
I will say this. For the first time in my life, the Lions are a real organization.
They certainly are.
Let me ask you this question, Terry. Explain that a little bit more for the people at home that are listening. Like, why do you feel, because you're talking about a person that has watched the Detroit Lions for the better part of however long you want to admit to, watch the Detroit Lions. You know they fail time and time again. They always let you down. They always pick you up at the bus stop and then let you off at the stop way before it's yours. What about this team? What about these players making you say that?
It's not just the players. I have more confidence in ownership. Sheila Hamp is a better owner than her dad or her mom
or her brother
who brought in Matt Millen
Lion fans
and kept him.
No, the dad extended him because the organization was better run, or he said it was better organized or some crap like that. this is an organization, and I know people say, well, what about the 90s with Barry and they won their playoff game? Here's what I'll say about the 90s, why it's better now or potentially could be better. In the 90s, you still had what I used to call 3 Mile Island. The players did their thing, the front office did their thing, ownership did their thing, and when things didn't go right, they blamed each other.
Yeah.
They were not cohesive. It was not, you know, it was a organization that was blessed to have Barry Sanders, blessed to have Herman Moore, and they kind of wrote it there. But I look at it this way. You had Barry Sanders for 10 years that could only win 1 playoff game. That's shameful.
Yeah,
and then when you talk, or when I talk to former Lion players, they blame it on coaching. Wayne Fontes had 2 of his brothers as defensive back coaches. Neither one knew what they were doing. Wayne would, after the run and shoot had played out, then he's like, let's bring in the run and shoot and then call it the Great Lakes offense. They were always late to the party.
Well, this time it doesn't appear that they're late to the party. It seems like they are the party, and that's the hype train. Dan Campbell talking about the hype train that is the Detroit Lions.
I think is always the thing that's going to worry you is the hype train. I mean, as with most coaches, you know, this thing is just taking off and it's out of control right now. And that's fine as long as we stay focused on the job at hand and the work. I just keep going back to that. We got to put the work in and earn it.
Maz, according to Dan Campbell, he's absolutely right. You got to put that work in to earn the hype train. So they're not buying into the hype train like Terry. Terry's not buying into the hype train. Terry sees it for what it is. Kind of like Dan Campbell saying, "Hey, you got to go out there and do it." He sees it for what it is.
That's what everyone is saying about this team. You know, because they're one of the national darlings of the league, the Jets and the Lions. Those are the top 2 teams that are most talked about right now. We just saw Sports Center live here with Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're talking about the Lions. They never talk about the Lions. You know, the laughing thing. When the Lions made their draft pick, what would they do the next second, Terry? After they make a Lions draft pick, they'd go to a commercial. Go to a commercial. Or barely talk about it.
Or take the Lions pick during commercial.
Exactly.
It's true.
I mean, it's a different beast now, but every national pundit said they better not read their own press clippings, and that's what Dan Campbell's talking about.
To start this season off, obviously, you know, the first game of the season, Lions open up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, Thursday Night Football, following it up against the Seattle Seahawks. For the Detroit Lions, like, how do they want to get off this season? Like, what would be considered a good start for the Detroit Lions in, you know, what is it, 17 games? Just give me the first 5 games. What would be a good start for the Detroit Lions?
Well, a good start would be winning both of those games. I'm talking about in Kansas City.
That's a great start.
But realistically, the way I look at it, they're not going to get blown out by Kansas City.
All right.
The thing that fans forget, what happens way too often, when you have your ring ceremony, when you have your first game after winning the Super Bowl or NBA Final or Stanley Cup, that first game is hell because you're sluggish, you're celebrating, your mind is back on what happened 5 or 6 months ago. I don't think Kansas City is going to play well that first game. The Lions are only 6.5-point underdogs. They may cover that spread. So I don't think they're going to get blown out.
I'm with you, man. I can't wait for that game. I said it last week. I've been saying this since day one. The best time to play the Chiefs is week 1 before they get rolling and right after that ring ceremony because they're going to be pumped. They're going to be coming out of that stadium, out of the tunnel. It's going to be pomp and circumstance. They're going to get their rings. Then guess what? They got to reboot again. And meanwhile, the Lions are that contender that's coming out. They're Clubber Lang.
Yeah.
They're coming out. No one's rooting for them. They're just chilling out, and they're like, all right, let's go kick their ass now.
Now, I agree with both of you guys. You know, you talk about the beginning of the season. Look, playing in the NFL or having played in the NFL, I no longer play. Having played in the NFL, that first week is chaos. That first week is hectic for any team, especially if your team, like you said, ring ceremony, the bling bling, and getting it all done. You know, what's going to be this year? Are they going to be able to keep the same things that they did last year, keep that same energy? Talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, and for the Lions, can they be as good as they were in the last 10-game stretch last year? But one of the other things that we've talked about, opening season, there's a player that will not be playing for the Detroit Lions, and that's Jamison Williams. So that's one of the things you focus on. How good can they be without Jamison Williams the first 6 weeks? And I believe Mina Kynes from ESPN talked about that right here. Check it out.
I'm really interested in watching the Lions offense these first few weeks without Jamison Williams, because they really don't have someone who can win outside and win deep. And last year, when DJ Chark, who was that guy for him for much of the season, was out for several games, their design pass rate went from, I believe, 65 to 51% or something. Basically, they went from being the Bengals to the Bears and just leaned on running the ball. I think with Gibbs, however, Ben Johnson, who's their very talented offensive coordinator, has the opportunity to do something different. The Lions offense was pretty similar to the Rams in a lot of ways. I think with Gibbs, he can steal from the San Francisco 49ers. I expect to see a lot of 21 personnel. I expect to see Jahmyr Gibbs used not too dissimilarly from Christian McCaffrey. And even if they can't get air yards, he can get explosives through yards after the catch with Gibbs, especially if he finds the right way to deploy him early on.
Man, just looking at his video, it gets me excited.
And then that's the film just from Alabama. You should have seen his film from Georgia Tech. I mean, it was more electric than the film he had in Alabama. T-Foss, this is why Brad Holmes went after Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of the dual threat that he is in the backfield, outside the backfield, catching the balls, receiving, taking the handoff. The guy's dynamic, and I think they're going to try to use him a lot, especially in the absence of J-Mo, and that's only going to help him when J-Mo comes back 6 weeks after the season starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as a whole, as a community, we looked at the Gibbs draft pick incorrectly.
We did.
We're like, why did Brad Holmes pick a running back? He's not a running back. He is, but he's not. He's a slot receiver. They can put him in different positions. They can put him in motion. They can do a lot of things with him. The thing is, just give him the ball and let him roll. Wherever wherever you get, set that package up. So they call him a weapon. I do believe that he is a weapon. They didn't draft him to be a running back.